Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the vocab words in that reading. So if you look on page 88, we can see that first word in bold for us to learn is the word sweet. And you should maybe be familiar with that word. It says they are sweet and juicy. So if they're sweet, it would be the opposite of sour. If it's sweet, it would be like ice cream, cake, or different fruits that can be sweet. So something that tastes good. Most people like sweet food. If you look in the next word, it says they are in sections. And you can look over to the right side of your textbook and you can see there's a picture given for you to see the word section. So they are in sections, so it's easy to eat them. So sections could be parts of a larger whole. So you can have different sections of a building, or you can have different sections of a room. It's just parts of a whole. And if you look down to the next word, seeds, you might also be familiar with that too, but of course seeds are what make what plants come from, and they do not have any seeds, so the little things that are in the fruit. So if you look on the right side, it shows a picture of seeds. So if you ever eat a watermelon, you know that it usually has seeds in it. Some grapes have seeds. You don't really want to eat seeds. Some have a thick skin, and I would guess, my guess is that at your level you probably already know the meaning of the word skin, but of course skin is what we all have, covers our body. And we can also, you might think of skin only referring to people, what we have, like the skin of a person, or even an animal, but we can talk about skin on a fruit. So it says some of them have a thick skin. So that would just be the outer covering, just like our skin is what covers us. And then some of them have a thin skin. So we've talked about the word thick. So if you look in that sentence, some of them have a thick skin. Now this was a word that I hope you remember, because a lot of you missed this word when we had it before. So thick, we talked about pages. If you have a lot of pages in a book, we'd say it's a thick book. If you have a lot of hair, you have thick hair. So if you look at the word thin, we can see it's going to be the opposite of the word thick. So it's not thick, it's thin, it's small, it's little. If you have a thin book, it's a very small book. If you say your hair is thin, you don't have very much hair. And so thin skin. That's a tongue twister if you try saying that. Thin skin, thin skin. Say that 5 times fast. That's a little difficult. So some have thin skin there. If you look on down, the next word we have in bold is the word shiny, and that would be shiny green leaves. If it's shiny, it's bright. So just think of the word sunshine, but then make that into an adjective, shiny. And also just let's back up to the word thin again, and you should be asking yourself, what part of speech is this? Noun, verb, adjective, adverb? What's the part of speech? And hopefully you said adjective. And how do we know it's an adjective? Well, let's look, and we know adjectives describe nouns. And we see the word skin follows the word thin. And we should know that the word skin is a thing, it's a noun. Thin is describing it, what type of skin. It gives a further description, so it has to be an adjective, just like shiny is an adjective as well. If you look on down, we've got the word wild. Wild. Wild oranges. So wild, if you look off to the side, the book tells us it's not planted by people. If we refer to animals in the wild, that means they're animals that don't belong to anybody. They are just free to go. If we talk about plants like oranges growing in the wild, then that just means that Nobody planted them. They don't belong to anybody because nobody planted them. They just grow without any attention or care. Now, the word wild is like a lot of English words in that it can have several different meanings. So that is the meaning that we're going to focus on for this lesson. But keep in mind the word wild can mean different things depending upon the context of how it's being used. But we can talk about animals in the wild or wild oranges growing, and that just means something that's not being taken care of by one specific person. And then if you look, the next word is raise. Raise is the word. So to raise oranges, once again, the word raise can have a few different meanings. In this, it tells us it's to grow oranges. So if you raise oranges, you're growing them. You can talk about raising chickens if you live on a farm. And you can't grow chickens, but that would be having chickens and keeping care of them, and hopefully they have more chicken. Or if you raise horses, you have horses and you want to have more. Or you can raise a crop or raise a plant, meaning to make it grow. And if you look at that, to raise, what part of speech? Noun, verb, adjective, or adverb? And hopefully you're saying verb. To raise is a signal we have a verb in the infinitive. And like I said, we can have other different meanings of the verb raise, but we're just going to focus on that meaning. Then we can see the word around, and the book also tells us that means about, close to. It's around that. In English, we've got a lot of words that mean something close to. If we say probably or likely, those are also words that mean in some ways, not always, but almost always, or very, very certain of something. So around would not be exact. It would just be around, about, close to. So we talked about the word about. If I say, he is about 25 years old, that means he could be 24 or 26. It's somewhere in that range. If you say around 4,400 years ago, same meaning. About could also be used in that instance. Then that very last word in bold, lovely. Lovely. You might not know that word, but you should know the word love. And when you think of the word love, is it a good word? Does it have a good meaning behind it or a bad meaning? And I think we could all say, well, the word love is usually good. Oh, I love this. I love him. I love you. I love going to school. Something that's very good. And if you look at this, has lovely old pictures. It's not necessarily the same as love. Lovely and love are very different words, but similar in the sense of something that's lovely is very pretty. Something that's very good. It's very nice. So lovely would be very pretty. Old pictures. And once again, what part of speech is lovely? Noun, verb, adjective, or adverb? And if you're not sure, look at what comes after lovely, and you'll see the word old, and then you see the word pictures. Pictures is a noun. Lovely is describing pictures, so lovely is going to be that adjective for us. All right, so that's the vocab for oranges.